What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Core Podcast covering all things Apple TV Plus. My name is Jim, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Luke and Kyle. And today we continue our coverage of Apple TV Plus's Foundation. Today we're covering season 2, episodes 8 and 9, titled "The Last Empress" and "Long Ago, Not Far Away." We're so close, Luke. We're
Mhm.
so close to being able to hear your thoughts, but we're here now. Episodes 8 and 9. Kyle, as always, I want you to go first. What do you do? Go. What'd you think?
It feels good, I think, to get some confirmation on things. It's going to be fun to talk about some things that we've talked about over the past handful of podcast episodes. As always, the CGI is just incredible. I mean, the
Mhm.
space battles just look fantastic. Everything with the ships and the things like that. And it feels pretty wild that there's only one episode left.
Yeah.
Episode 9 had a really good, okay, finale's next vibe to the end of it,
Yes.
of like, holy crap, like I need to obviously see what happens next. I would even almost have been not content, but like I wouldn't have been crazy to me if that was the season finale, and that was like what we were left off on, like that look of day. Like that would have been pretty crazy. So I'm almost glad that we
Yeah.
got another episode in this season.
Mhm.
Me too. Fade to black right there with that look of from day yesterday, as you may say. Um,
Whoa.
sorry, Kyle, you only have 2 more podcast episodes left, being that beautiful, and then you're moving on.
Hey, you
But
don't know that.
Kyle, I'm saying will be day in or dusk in season 3. I
Dusk next
will
season,
be
yeah.
Gotcha. I
day.
thought it
Live in
actually
the
relied on the time skips of switching of the days. You're just saying in general.
each
Gotcha.
season we
Yeah.
change. All right.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
the
you're right.
baby again right now, right? Kyle's beautiful. You're old as shit, bro. All
Yep.
right. I like your shirt, by the way, Luke. For
Mhm.
anyone not on the video screen, baby. Yeah, this was man, I just need to say, am I being crazy with recency bias to say that it's definitely one of my favorite sci-fi shows
No,
ever?
because episode 9 is the best episode of the entire series up to this point, and for you to already like the show as much as you do, I think it's totally fine. Like, you're just living in the peak of the show right now, and hopefully the peak carries through to season 3 and we get even higher. I think it's totally fair to say that this is one of the better shows, specifically from Apple, and then even more specifically sci-fi.
And we actually had a fun conversation with this when we did one of our TikToks about ranking the top 10 sci-fi shows of all time according to IMDb, according to Ranker, etc. And we were having that little debate on what's fantasy, what's sci-fi. So of course, there's a weird little parallel, or there's a weird little blending of what actually pertains or what actually makes sense when you're saying just the sci-fi genre. But I'm gonna say right now, I put Foundation over Silo, and that's another show we're covering. I'll put it over Dark Matter, and I freaking love Dark Matter.
Mhm.
Severance is tough, and again, that's the funny thing about sci-fi, whatever. But we'll talk about it at the end of season 2. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it with Demerzel's the freaking best.
Yeah.
And
Such a
my
cool
gosh,
character, man.
I could watch her character. Just give us a spin-off of her throughout all the years of
Mhm.
being the big dog, like we guessed, Kyle. I could see that. I could watch that.
Yeah.
But let's get started. Let's do it.
Okay,
Luke,
you're right. This is going to be, for those listening and have been following along and catching up with us, our last double recording where we're ever going to have one of these Foundation podcast coverage of more than one episode. So we do have a lot to get through today, but this is really the penultimate before we get to our finale on the next episode of our Apple of the core. And then we're going to be doing one a week. So this is going to be the last super long podcast. I'm hoping, at least, but we do have a lot to get through, and we're going to start in Ignis, which the mic drop moment of this episode is that it actually was in the past. And I loved that reveal. We're talking about that pretty soon, actually, into this bucket. But this all happens before the events of what's going down on Trantor and Terminus. So I think it makes sense that we start here, and we're really just picking up where we left off. And I think the only thing I want to mention right off the bat before we jump into Sal and Harry's conversation, which is going to be one of the more fun things to talk about here, is that there was a debate between you guys about how much Gail knew. And it feels like
Yeah.
that she confirmed pretty early on in this episode that she felt Harry drowning. So she was aware of that. She thought that she was slightly on the in and had something on Tullum, but it's too late. And she gets caught in a psychic prison. And this kind of escalates before she gets brought to the ritual piece of the episode. I don't want to jump into the ritual yet because we do have a lot of Sal stuff to talk about, but I want to get your guys' comments on that. Did anything significantly change about how you feel about this with Gail's reaction?
So Harry's alive.
Mhm. Skipping to the end, yeah.
Kyle, did Gale have anything to do with that? How was he saved?
I literally have no idea.
I mean, they didn't give us anything about how he was saved. It was almost a comedic thing where he just shows up and he bashes her and then he says, I never liked her. But
Mhm.
Gail seemed shocked. I don't know if it was because she was shocked at the brutality of it. But again, I just don't know how he survives that. And we said, or at least I was saying, me and Kyle were actually on different sides of the fence where I was saying if she was learned of everything and she was playing Tellum, could she have something to do with saving Harry? And I still didn't even go there because I still didn't know how that makes sense. So we'll obviously have to get that answer in the finale. But the obvious thing here is that Harry's alive, his physical body is there. He bashed some brains in, and Gale did seem to be like not in control like I would think this episode. So I'm leaning more towards Kyle. Right? Is that how you took it, Kyle?
Yeah, I don't think that Gail was really ready. I think she maybe had maybe a level of awareness, but I think there's potential there that she has been exposed to this new level of power in the past day, or I wouldn't even know how long it's been. We'll call it 2 days. Have they slept? Who knows? But I could see her having maybe a level of apprehensiveness, not entirely sure of what she's actually experiencing. So I mean, I never thought that she was actually like playing Tellum at
Right,
all.
exactly.
Sorry.
I was that.
The only thing I was hinting at was that she was saying that she was aware that Harry drowned, or she thought
Yeah,
Harry drowned. So meaning like
right.
she wasn't just completely in the dark following Tellum. There's going to be more nuance to that.
Yeah. So my question here is they really do pinpoint and focus on suffering being what they feel. Can she feel that he was drowning and suffering, but then he stopped? Or could that have meant like could the emptiness have been like, oh, I just confirmed he died and she was shocked that he was alive? Or could she have felt that he somehow was saved and she knew he was alive somewhere?
I have no idea, honestly, and I feel like they had the chance to talk about it in the finale, and if they don't talk about it in the finale, I'll probably be a little upset.
Yeah.
But at this point, I literally have no clue.
That's
Yeah.
fair. I
Yeah.
mean, like you said, it ends on like almost a comedic moment to the point where that's going to be the next direct conversation we get about
Yeah.
it in this bucket. So we'll leave it there for now. Let's jump into one of my favorite scenes of this entire 2 episodes of this entire season, maybe. And this is, well, a combination of scenes. You can say where Sal's locked in Sal's locked in the mentalic prison that's supposed to be
Mhm.
blocking her mental abilities, but she figures out pretty quickly that the prime radiant, like you guys kind of called out, had the ability to go flat and it was hidden on her. And then she uses the ability there, she uses the feature of the prime radiant that it's in superposition, always in 2 spots, to actually mentally go inside it and talk to Vault Harry. And this conversation was so damn good. And Harry is
Yeah.
so freaking smart, just how quick he's thinking, even though this isn't like the true Harry. This is the Harry based on his biological molecules. Just how funny he was when he was just like, fuck, I'm the left hand. But he's like figuring
Yeah.
it out and you're watching his gears work. And it's just so cool. He is such a fun presence in this show that I just love the idea there being multiple of them just because you get more screen time of him. And the fact that we already know that he's alive in the end is really nice because we do end up losing the Vault version, at least what we can assume through Day's attack on Terminus. But there was just a lot here. And
Yeah.
big moment of this all is that Sal is the one that takes Gale's future vision of the mule and plants the seed about Hober Mallow piercing the Empire's hide into Vault Harry, who then it then domino effects into the message and the killing of the warden and all of that. It all comes out in this quick montage, and I just thought that it was so excellently done.
We flirted with this so much, Kyle, talking about there are going to be different timelines and this and that. And I really didn't expect it just because I thought, is it going to make it too confusing? But this was subtly done in a way where I loved it. It was a great reveal. It's not, I'm guessing, too much time. It's not like off by a lot. It's just off enough for us to see earlier scenes from season
Mhm.
2. But anytime Harry has a conversation with anybody, and especially if it's a power player like Empire or Gale or Sal, anytime those are on screen, I'm locked in.
Mhm.
So if you tell me that there's 52 Harrys, I'm locked in for each one and every conversation they're about to have. And I really did love when Harry was like, "Oh, there's multiples of me."
Mhm.
It just you already nailed it, Luke. There's just so many parts of this conversation that were so good, and then Sal giving him certain things, and he's like, "Oh, you're not supposed to tell me. Don't tell me." And then he's like you said, the gears are turning, and he's like, "Oh, on the left hand, aren't I?" And then he's just like, "You know
Mhm.
what? Screw it. I'm using this information."
Yep.
Because that's how Harry would be too. Like he would logically know that he's not supposed to know this information because it could mess with the math. But then at the same time, he has a variable that he could throw into an experiment. He's going to do it.
Mhm.
He has the line: the left hand doesn't get to put its hand on the scale. What's the point of having a thumb then? Basically, where he was always going to end up doing that. I pulled a Dave Talda on this and immediately said Salvor Hardin was the ghost, and then walked it back to be the mule because it would be cooler. And I'm just upset that I did that because I would have
You still
been
said it,
correct.
bro.
I
Yep.
guess that's like a quarter of a point though, because I didn't believe in myself. But
Nah, it's all right. I believed in you enough for yourself, dude.
I appreciate that. This, I think, was the funniest line in the entire show of what Luke had said. Fuck, I'm the left hand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really think that's the funniest. I can't imagine anything gets funnier than that, because that was just perfectly delivered at the right time too. Exactly, like they're having this very serious conversation where he's figuring things out, and just the way that Jared Harris delivered it was
Mhm.
so perfect.
When I'm
And
watching
I'm
TV
gonna kind of
shows,
miss him.
yeah. Oh, sorry. When I'm watching TV shows by myself and something's funny, I usually crack a smile. But this was like a belly, like out loud
Yeah.
noise I made when he made this
Yeah.
delivery. It was so freaking good. And what's the quote, Kyle? You said earlier in the podcast season? Is it more Harry, more Harry, more Harry?
Yeah, it sucks, man, because
Yeah.
he's so distinct. They did it so well in writing him being a very distinct version of Harry. He's not the same Harry that we're having on Ignis, the planet, actually, and then that comes through in the end. And he just had a different way about him that was kind of
Yeah.
enjoyable too. The way he handles the conversations was, I wouldn't even say like more calculated or cold, but like it just was distinct, and I liked that. And it'll be interesting to see if we're really just down to one organic body Harry, because we've
So
gone on a journey this season where we started with kind of two AI kind of fake construct digital ones, and now we're kind of down to apparently just one real body
we
one, which can be worrying.
for a hot sec, we had 0 Harry. So
Mhm.
Yeah, true.
I'm living the dream right now. So, we're jumping around a little bit, everybody, and we apologize for that. And I'm gonna keep it very concise here because we'll get to it more on the Terminus bucket. But when Terminus is being attacked and getting destroyed, I mean, to me, it seemed like they showed the vault lighting up as Polly was looking at it. I don't know if that was supposed to be just symbolism because everything is blowing up around him. And he, again, symbolism like looking at God, etc., because, he's finally planted his flag. But also, there's a question to Harry. Could he have put himself back into the Prime Radiant that he just gave to Demerzel / Day? And obviously that's a prison for him, but he knows it will get opened again at some point, or he would at least hope it would. Is that part of the plan? You gotta assume, and again, I'm gonna cut it right here, but you have to assume that Harry assumed that Terminus would go down Foundation 1 would go down.
Mm-hmm.
So he would assume his vault would go down. So we'll get back into that. But anyway, the Ignis, the Ignis stuff really, with Harry being alive, I know Kyle, we probably don't have much more to talk about on the actual physical body of Harry being alive, just because again, they don't really give us anything on what to theorize on how he's alive.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't predicting this about Tellum, that she could move her consciousness. And it's actually like a really cool idea, and something that if we did, maybe if it was week to week and we had that hard week in between, we could like theorize it, because it makes sense for a very strong mentalic like her who's scared of death to try that.
Mm-hmm.
But admittedly, while watching this in the binge, the 2 episode at a time binge, I was not expecting her to want Gale and her
And
body.
just to cue us into that, the only other thing that happens is that Harry decides to help Sal at her own spot on Ignis, and he figures out right away just how to deal with the mentalic discs that were blocking it. She escapes, and then she's going to go look for Gale. So to cue us back into what you were just talking about right there, Jimmy, is that the ritual starts and Tellum goes on this entire life story spiel that, like you just said, I think it was pretty wild and out there. It feels probably one of the most fantasy element levels of anything we've gotten in the show, but it does make sense with the rules that we have now, that she's just so powerful. She's been jumping her conscious from person to person to just have a pseudo immortality. And then we even found out that the little girl that she was pretending to be right in the beginning was like the first person she jumped in. So naturally, the next thing she's going to want to do is jump into Gale, who's the most powerful mentalic that we've ever really seen. And she did also say that she gets more powerful as she jumps into more bodies and getting their abilities. So this was like a supervillain level plan that she had going on here. But before Sal comes in, saves the day, did you have thoughts on specifically what Jimmy was talking about, Kyle?
I think it was a way to square the circle that we had kind of been rummaging around of, like, why does Tellum think that Gale can be the leader when their goals aren't aligned? You know, that was a question that we talked a lot about in the last podcast recording. I think this was a satisfying answer to that question. It all seemed like it happened very quickly. I mean, I think it was very clear almost in these 2 episodes that, like, Ignis season wide has kind of just been like the C plot of the season. Not that it's not necessarily uninteresting. It's just like, it kind of felt like, Tellum even says the line, like, I'm on an accelerated timeline here. Like, it kind of just felt like we sped through it, which in my opinion is fine with me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy to be introduced to the Mentalics. I don't really need Tellum to be like a big bad that's like haunting the timeline more than the mule is. You know? So, like, I think from that perspective, that all totally worked out. I mean, Sal was always going to be the one that kind of saved the day. They had set her up so much of being the skeptic and all of those things. So the only question I feel like I had was, Sal gets out through talking to Harry. And this is somewhat moving back to the other conversation of, how did she get the radiant?
It was on her back. So she went and got it from the beggar, because Harry told her that you need to get the radiant, keep it protected, and protect Gale, and don't tell me where you got it. And then she flattened it and put it behind her jacket, right? And
It was
then
like
she
in
took
her
off
jacket
her
or
jacket.
something.
Yeah. And then she took off her jacket and pulled it out. Now, something that's kind of funny to me, and it is my fault that we jumped ahead too quickly, but back to when she's imprisoned. First off, the little sketchy boy ended up being the homie. So
facts.
That's poo poo on us, Kyle, dude, going against the homie. But he was still sketchy, dude.
He's a traitor.
He was still sketchy.
But
He's
anyway,
a traitor.
as much as I loved the Harry and Sal conversation and how it turned into him writing Hober Mallow onto the vault, he told her, so his help to her was, all right, you're going to go get the discs and you're going to change the frequency so that it basically is like a sonic boom kind of thing that breaks the rocks. He didn't like tell her how to do it. She could he basically just said, hey man, maybe you could change that to your advantage. And maybe she needed that kind of help, but it does seem to me that Sal could have just went up there and got him anyway. And like she goes in and just starts finagling with it like she did on the Invictus and everywhere she ever worked on Terminus. So I don't know. It didn't seem like a major revelation, something that Harry saved her.
I think that's probably the biggest criticism of the show that I have too, is that sometimes it's like very clearly written where it's like they want to get to A to B and then they just like invent something to get from A to B. And sometimes it feels obvious like that. I think I kind of agree. And then
Yeah.
she just like climbs up and gets them, it seemed like. And it was like, why can't you
Yeah.
just climb out at that point? They help a
Push a couple of
lot.
rock.
They
Well,
do help a lot during the ritual and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
So that was
I
a
mean,
big benefit.
he gives her the idea to change their frequency. That's
Yeah.
obviously the big thing. It just surprises me. And maybe it's just because her brain was too scrambled with everything going on in the cell. But it's surprising to me that the kid tells her, like, yo, these discs are screwing you up, bro. And she doesn't think to go up there herself and try to mess with them. If she ends up doing that already. But again, you got your cat over there doing the thing.
Me?
Yeah.
No, I'm actually just playing with something in my hand.
That's hilarious because I thought I saw I was like, is your left hand petting? And then I was like, is your right hand petting?
No, I'm just fidgeting over here.
No, I thought I saw some petting action going on, dude. So, yeah, I mean, again, it's not a huge deal. It's not, but it just kind of cracked me up, and it's worth them doing that if that means we got the conversation with Harry and Sal. So
Yeah.
totally fine. I'm going to go ahead and assume the rocks are implanted there tough enough where she couldn't have done it herself. So the sonic boom kind of thing breaks them. She can climb through. And now she's going to go and protect Gale. And, we have this whole thing where we're getting the explanation between Tellum and Gale, where Tellum's like, yo, I'm going to steal your body here. And I loved how Gale says, like, what's going to happen to me? And she's like, you'll be there for a little bit and I'll hear you and I'll honor you for a little bit. But after years and years and years, you'll disappear. I keep looking for that little girl, but she's never there anymore. Um, I liked this idea of
Very
what her
dark.
plan was. Yeah, I liked this idea of what her plan was as the villain against Gale.
So after Sal makes her escape and she goes and breaks up the ritual, the action sequence of these two episodes really goes down. And this is where we have the split where they run back. They realize the ship never actually left the planet because, of course, they knew that was like a fake illusion. And then we have the two storylines where Sal is going to go and protect the ship as Lauren, I think his name is, shows up in his Hugo form and they have a fight. We can talk about that because that's pretty straightforward, just action piece there. I thought it was genius the way that he just kept trying to appeal to her emotion side. He kept throwing her off, of course. And then the Gale side, which is the more important piece of it all, where we have this almost psychic battle going down. You learn something about them. I think Tellum even says in this piece, which I didn't remember this, but she says that she was the one after she heard Gail's voice. She planted the seed in her head to leave Synax, which that was like a little detail I did not remember. Makes her more important. And even though she goes out now, that kind of will have her fingerprints on the series going forward if she wasn't lying there.
Yeah.
But then the big moment happens where she goes into her mind. Tellum goes into Gail's mind to mess with her about the vision of the future. And then that's when we have the mule coming in who he just has just this presence that's so cool and just lingering in the background that's going to keep building until we finally get to season 3, but he scares the shit out of her. And then that ends up being in the, they end up in the real world. Then Harry makes his appearance and saves the day with his funny line. So that's like the rest of the Ignis storyline, mostly action based, but it sounds like that was also something that caught your ears, Jimmy, with the idea that Tellum planted the seed in her mind, right?
Yeah, because I have a feeling that this will be an identity crisis kind of thing for Gale in the future, whether it's quick or it lasts into season 3, where, she left her family, she left her life because she thought she needed more. and she yells back, and she's pretty desperate. There's a lot of desperation in her voice when she's like, "No, that was me. I thought of that myself. I solved the equation." I have a feeling that she's going to be wondering now, whether it's in the back of her head or she outwardly needs to talk to Sal about it. Oh, am I not necessarily like a fraud or anything, but it's just like the biggest thing that ever happened to me in my entire life, that I'm following Harry and I'm on this quest pretty much, happened because Tellum started it, not me.
Could she turn that into a positive? I mean, what is going to happen with all these other Mentalics? We know she creates a squad of them. Like, is this the foundation of that, or is she? Maybe
Oh,
it's not an or, but it's or. I said it. Can she send signals out to gather other people?
we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, what are her kind of next steps there? I could see that being like them kind of breaking down, thinking logically, like, okay, we know in the vision you said, or he said, that you have an army of Mentalics. There's some people here that are zealots. Like, how can we get more of them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the whole thing with Lauren, Luke, when you're talking about him switching back and forth between Hugo, great to see our boy again, but it did crack me up. And whether it's all a play or not, he was like apologizing to her for doing that to her when they were
Mm-hmm.
trying to be friends, and he was acting friendly. Oh, I'm very sorry I did that to you, and he just was like throwing that shit left and right in this throwdown, man.
Yep.
He's sitting there suffocating, and he's like, "Oh, I love you." And it's like, wow, dude. Send her to the therapist before you freaking die.
I thought there was a chance he was going to become good.
Yeah, me too. I did,
Yeah.
and I still don't know if that moment when he apologizes and they're having that little bit of a conversation was real or not. Right? Like, if she would have became one of them, I guess it would have been real. But as soon as they're not, or she's not with them, then I guess she's the enemy to him. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is about the Hugo and Sal, but I just feel nothing.
Yeah, I said that too. Hugo and Sal don't really do it for me in general. I like Hugo.
Yeah,
Um,
I like the characters, but like I feel like I should feel like she's devastated. And I'm
yeah,
just
and
like,
I mean,
I just don't feel that level of anywhere near that emotion. I'm just like, okay, like
there's
again, this is like the B plot of the C plot of the
yeah, and
season. And
there's
that's honestly, this is where I was kind of realizing, like, I'm feeling nothing. Man, this Ignis stuff was just like clearly the bottom rung of like everything that was happening in this season. And again, not that it was bad. It was just like it was the least of my worries compared to Tarantor, Terminus, those things.
yeah, and I think that it's pretty much consensus, and I don't really look into anything at all because I don't want spoilers, but of course, you're still going to have a pulse on it a little bit as the podcaster. But I think the consensus here is when Cleon's days are on the screen, you're locked in. That's the main part of this show that you really care about as the fandom. Um, and Gail too. And I really did enjoy the Ignis stuff because I like the Mentalic ideas, and I think that that's going to be a huge deal, especially with what we know from the Vision. But yeah, Kyle, we've seen plenty of scenarios in other TV shows or movies where there's like a death like that, or a fake death where you're just seeing the Vision and seeing how beat up Sal is and how she's really like tortured on what she's seeing, and you feel that for her. And I didn't feel it either, and I haven't felt that for them. But I will say I felt it when my boy Bell was upset. When
Mm-hmm.
my boy Bell was crying, I was feeling for him. And also, I mean, I think we talked about Brother Constant and Hober Mallow too. It just seems like for whatever reason, Sal and Hugo ended up being the lowest relationship that we were interested in.
It's just the
That's
least interesting part of her character. Like, she is such a strong, independent, she's a good fighter, all that stuff, and all that
Yeah,
stuff is just so much
exactly.
more interesting than the romantic
And
side of it.
hey, that's actually a good thing. Like, it's
Yeah,
us saying, it's pretty much saying like she doesn't need a relationship to be
no.
interesting, and we're not saying Belle or Brother Constant / Ober need that either. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Sal didn't even ever need a relationship to be a great character, an interesting character.
Yeah. So good news about the Hugo Sal thing is we probably never have to talk about the relationship anymore. So we can put a pin in that. Maybe not put a pin in that. We can just X that off the board. But I am happy that the actor came back for multiple scenes this season. I always
Agreed.
like when actors do that in general. But now we're going to shift over to the Trantor stuff. And this, by my notes, looks like it's going to be the longest part of this podcast, but also Demerzel. So hell yeah. So let's start with, before we get to her amazing backstory and all the implications of that and how it applies to the theories, we're going to start back with the beginning of episode 8, where we have, it's a big Rue and Dusk episode. It's actually a big 2 Rue and Dusk episodes where she is really teaming up with Dusk. You find out, I'm jumping ahead a bit here later, that it sounds like Rue actually is in love with Dusk, and Dusk seems to reciprocate the feelings. So this is almost like a genuine connection where they're trying to info share and figure out what the best plan of attack is for going forward, because they talk about right here, Rue drops the secret that Cloud Dominion has the ability to restore memories. So she always had every single bit of her memories from Trantor in the past. This, of course, is like a state secret, blah, blah, blah. Kind of bond them a little bit for this episode, or at least build some trust. But the main piece of this is that Rue tells Dusk that Demerzel's been threatening Sereth, and that's like not cool. Like they need to figure out what to do here, right? So this is also the part of the episode where it comes out that there's like almost like a brainwashed phrase held within the Cleons about Demerzel, saying she will always be here as she always has been, which has been subtly mentioned a couple times throughout the series. So this is really them deciding like they need to figure what's going on here. Then we also just have the, I guess, backstory about the robot war. Like there's more conversations about that. And then we get our first glimpse of the green paint that pays off later. It's really just all set up. Anything you guys want to jump in with before I start breaking down like the actual parts of the episode?
How familiar are you with the Gear Wars, Rue? Because Dusk is going to let you know right now. That would be interesting to get a TV show on that. Like you said, Jimmy, I want to see Demerzel leading robots and gearheads into battle against those slimy humans, because it seems like the humans were cruel and the robots just wanted recognition, as we tend to be. I'm so interested if there's going to be more of a payoff of this. Cloud Dominion has technology to do this, because as it stands, it's really only the fact that she can just say to Dusk, hey, I have my memories.
I agree.
Because they're saying like we could like restore yours, but like, does it matter now for Dusk?
Exactly.
Like, I don't think it matters that he needs his memory back. In terms of the larger story, there could be something I'm missing, but I'm just, because it felt like it's such a way she says it too. Felt like it was this big thing, and it was I'm just kind of sitting here thinking like, man, like what other ways could it become important? Because I hope it doesn't just kind of fall to the wayside. That was like the big thing I walked away from this stuff.
Yeah, if I had to have guessed and there was some kind of cut down the middle and we had the podcast on the second half of that storyline, I would have said that his memory being broken into would have been the big reveal instead of what we got, which was astronomically freaking more awesome. But I'm guessing here that it's a way for him to know that he can now fully trust her and that she's in on his plan, because he did go with Dawn and they found out about this memory issue. And, she planted that seed when they were in bed together, but then he went and fully, investigated and found out that Cleon the First had all this extra memory stored and et cetera. And it really made him feel like could be actually real, that they're screwing with me. And, Day gets that confirmed pretty much by Demerzel, but Dust didn't know that. But then having her tell him like, hey, there's a way to do it, and I'm basically giving you this information. It probably was just their way of pushing those two further in their Sherlock Holmes and Watson actions that they had going on. And yeah, Luke, let's get into it.
Yeah, because that's going to be the main part of episode 9, but that was really their setup, because now we have the moment where I don't want to cue it up to say that it was like the level of like peak Game of Thrones moments, but it was like what happens here is Day is going to broadcast the entire Imperium, the entire Empire, this execution of the Foundation members, and it gave me vibes of like the Ned Stark episode. We have all of our power players in front of the world, and something crazy is going to happen. And I'm not like comparing this to like the Cersei Sept episode, but like this was up there with holy freaking shit. Like we were about to watch Brother Constance get her head cut off, and Days proclaiming like we have to take down the Foundation. Like this is all just about to come to a head. And Sareth's there, like we have Rue and Dusk in the background, like all this is happening. And then motherfucking Hober Mallow whisper ship teleports in and just hell breaks loose. We have so much action going on. There's just chaos everywhere. Becky makes an appearance, probably the last appearance, but saves the day temporarily. We have the split of Constant getting saved by Hober Mallow and then their escape. And then we have Brother Polly, who is stuck there, and he's now going to be like a prisoner and leverage for Day. Just so much goes down in this couple of minutes, but it was just excellent TV to me. And I just love whenever Hober does anything big like this.
And going back to something else that's really, really cool. And it's I hate to do this because I have done this once or twice each episode, but it's almost like Murderbot. Everyone listen to Murderbot, where everyone watch Murderbot and then listen to our coverage. But every time something big is about to happen, at the very last second, right before it happens, Murderbot's like, "Oh shit!" and he finds out right before them. Demerzel, her reaction, where she kind of like makes that face she makes, where she kind of like turns and looks to the right, and she calls out because she sees it first or she knows it first. I was like, "Oh man, I love it! I love Demerzel, dude." But yeah, this was great. And Kyle, do you think this was piercing the hide, or do you think there's more to it? Do you think this was the big spot for Hober?
I could see it being something else. I could see it them letting us think it's this and kind of falling back and being like, okay, we saw it, it got broadcasted to the world. That's why it seems maybe the most likely that this would be it, because it's broadcasted to the entire empire and galaxy. That's why people would end up knowing his name, I would say.
Yes.
But I could see them being tricky and it actually being, because they're like, okay, now everyone's gonna sit back and be like, all right, that's checked off the list of the things that we know are gonna happen. So
yeah, and there's still more to come for the consequences of this, because we get the immediate reaction where they go to their safety room, etc., and then Day has his freak out and he says, "I'm going to Terminus," and he puts Dawn in charge and all that kind of stuff. And then Day is immediately busy on his way to Terminus and then at Terminus. So, I mean, they have broadcasted to the entire galaxy, multiple galaxies, however you want to say it. I've been saying it wrong this entire 2 seasons, but Day being made to look like a little biatch, right? He was saying, "I'm going to have a huge power play here. I'm going to take out Brother Constant. I'm going to take out Brother Polly. I'm going to show you guys on the day, on the anniversary of the Thespins and the Anacreans attacking and killing 100 million people, citizens of Trantor. I am going to make this big move right here." And then it was shown on screen, and then Hober Mallow got on screen and basically said, "Transmission over." That's hugely undermining, and it's showing that what Terminus actually said too, like what people were saying, like they can be touched. Cleons can be touched. So,
Did you
piercing.
think he was going to die there, Day?
No, I don't think I thought he was gonna die. But I mean, it was hilarious that Becky had him and he was screaming, man. He was scared. Kyle, that's you, man. That's you. Scared.
Becky?
What? What's the name?
No.
I'm Becky.
No, you're Day.
Oh, I thought you said I got the name wrong. Yeah, you're Day right now, man.
Nah, that would never be me.
I'm hanging with my girl.
I'm great with animals and robots.
Yeah,
that would never be me.
I saw you petting your cat earlier, so I knew you were great with animals.
This is, and I hate to be maybe, let's say, the Debbie Downer, but again, this is, I think, the biggest struggle that the show has is like action scenes like this sometimes, because it just took me out of it, of the, like, it's bunch of dust and then no dust and then there's dust and then there's no dust, and they're like, target lost, and it's like, and then it goes to Hober Mallow, and there's no dust around, and he's just standing there, and it's like, how can he be lost? He's literally standing right there, and everyone else is kind of just standing around. And for me, I was just like, damn, I wish I wasn't thinking this way, because the setup of everything was perfect. And again, and like you're saying, Jimmy, I think they did a great job too of your feeling, and it's like, oh man, like you can almost sense too that Hober is coming, but it's not even in a bad way. Like, I know it's coming. It's like, holy shit, like what is about to happen here? You know, so it definitely nailed all of those boxes. And it's so good for what will end up being, I guess, a conversation going on too of just this Hober and Constant relationship, because I love the Hober and Constant stuff.
Me too.
It's
You've been a Constant fan since scene 1.
Yeah. So I literally have on my notes, I said, this baby's about to be the mule when they are about to bang.
I love it.
Like, why the hell not? I need it. Give it to me.
Yeah, dude. And I will admit, man, I actually didn't notice anything with the action and the dust. I mean, maybe I was just so like enthralled and I was just so in. Again, I watched on my phone.
Yeah, you know what it reminded me of, and it's just so funny to bring it up, but because we literally talked about it, of season 1 when the Anacreons kind of attacked Terminus, the Foundation.
Yeah,
and it's just like they're all just standing there, getting
and
shot
they were
at
just
by like
missing
100 people.
Yeah.
And I was just like, whatever, I'm gonna move on mentally.
I still give that one. And it is funny that you say that, because Hober himself is the one, just like I was making fun of that lady being the one, and they just kept missing her. They hit her once and they just keep missing and missing and missing. And it's like, yeah, I guess there is a little bit of a Star Wars. And hey,
yeah, it's the
we get the we get the Star Wars nod in episode 9, plenty, and we obviously get it with the title of the episode, little play on Star Wars. But yeah, a little stormtrooper action during these during these scenes.
Still a great scene for sure. It's just maybe not the Game of Thrones comparison.
Yeah, like I didn't want to put it in the same sentence as the Sept.
Yeah,
the finale of
you're meaning like the weight of it.
The
For
weight
them in storyline.
Yes. And I meant power players all coming together, because like you don't always have all these people in the same room. But you kind of queued up a little bit of this, but in what'd you call it, the danger room, or
safe room?
Safe room. The opposite of the danger room. Yeah, the safe room. There's a couple of really quick scenes, so I don't want to just give us 5 minutes on each of these scenes. I'm just going to talk through a couple of them, and then whatever you guys want to say, feel free to bring it up. But the direct aftermath is that safety room where you have Days frazzled. The plan to send him to go to Terminus and fix this is like really put into stone here, and Demerzel is going to go with him. But we have that weird interaction with Sareth and Day where she's like kissing him and saying like, I love you, like all of this. And then that directly leads into the next time you see Sareth is the meeting between Dawn and her. After Day's already basically ready to leave the planet, Jimmy, the belly button, it gets very highlighted here that it is missing, but he does unsterilize himself, and then they bang. And then I just want your take on both of those dynamics. Is it going to happen? Dude. How do you feel about the relationship between Dawn and Sareth now it's escalated to this point? And do you see like the ramifications of this? Because also in this conversation, I think it's Sareth that ends up saying Demerzel is Cleon's only true heir, his forever empress. It might have actually been Dawn that says that, but they kind of work it all out in this moment that Demerzel's the one that's all around. And, so a couple things there, but.
Yeah. Going into the safe room, the panic room, etc. Day's freaking out. Dawn, it's me. I can't give myself some shit because I'm Dawn in this season, but we know, and this is by design, this is exactly how it's supposed to be, but he's immature as hell. She's having a little bit of a power play here. Meaning Sarah, she's going up the Day and she's egging him on to get the hell sorry. She's egging him on to get the hell out of there and go to Terminus and put himself in danger so that she can later tell Dawn, hey, if he's gone and we get rid of all of his clones or all, the way of cloning, the method of cloning, we could be together. But freaking Dawn, man, is seething. He is staring daggers into them while she's kissing and stuff. And it's like so obvious. And obviously this is where Rue sees it. And then we have the scene with Rue and Sareth where Rue is like, yo, bangity bangity bang. It's so freaking obvious that you're doing this with Dawn right now. Is this love? I don't care. You need to freaking be the queen and think of your people. And you need to do what you got to do with Day, get married, become the empress, and then fine, do what you want because you're the empress, whether you're alive or dead. And then Sarah basically says, cool, bro. Thanks for the advice, but I'm the queen and you're not. But still, Dawn takes some L's here because he's so obvious. So
You're
freaking
easy,
obvious.
bro.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm in love. I was in love, you know?
You get one kiss, and next thing you know, you're shooting yourself with a needle and trying to impregnate someone.
Right?
You're
I
crazy,
mean,
bro.
Azura,
Yeah.
Sarah, Dawn just loves romance, man.
The one thing for me, I totally thought Sarah was going to be like dead. She's just
She didn't look
unconscious, laying
great.
down, and I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
"Damn, what a way for that story to end." So I'm kind of glad that she's not. But I thought it was interesting that Dawn says the line of like, "I can't or we can't have Day raise our child," basically.
Yeah.
And that was like, whoa, that's even a bigger step. Because we
Yeah.
talked about it last podcast episode of when she says, don't you want to cast a shadow like your legacy? And we were like, I mean, that would be like a personal achievement that you can't literally tell anyone. And that just goes to the grave with you. That doesn't feel like a legacy thing. And it seemed like this is kind of maybe not the conclusion of, but maybe the continuation of that thought of he was like, we can't have Day raise this kid. And whether that's because he doesn't like Day and doesn't want Day to raise the kid, or if it's him being like, I want more ownership of this. I want to be,
Right.
involved and things
Post
like
nut
that. That
clarity.
seemed, yeah, I mean, that might have been pre-nut clarity. My man was fucking speaking with the little
Yeah,
thing
I
down
agree.
there,
I
but
don't remember. I don't know if I think they were laying. I think it was post, but not
was
sure.
it post? Oh, you're quick, bro. Sorry. I figured, me and DEMERZEL, but I just thought that was a big step that felt like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
really, really anti-Day. He is
And
way like less able to just kind of sit in the background and just kind of take things on the chin. Like he really wants to be out in the open anti-Day.
And this will be a huge conversation when we actually get to the point where Demerzel talks to Day and says, sorry, bro, I screwed you up. Because this is the conversation we've been having for a very long time on this podcast. And the conversation most likely has changed because of the alterations to the DNA and the genome and everything. And that gives them the ability to be pretty different on a certain spectrum. But it seems pretty like locked in storyline wise here that you do have like an innocent Dawn. We've had innocent Dawns multiple times who people think, you're a good guy. You're not going to become Day, but you do. And this Dawn himself has said, like, I am willing to deal with the consequences or whatever it is of becoming Day or the possibility that I may become Day. And again, you have to wonder, could the last Dawn, they're all Dawns at one point. Are they all a certain way at some point, and then inevitably they do turn into the D-bag Day? Or could this one, because he is altered, make some free will decisions here and be a good guy? I don't know, but we were flirting with it for a long time in the season about what's going to break the dynasty. We've been talking about it big time with him having children. Is this going to cause Dusk and Dawn to start a little bit of an inner turmoil here? And it looks like it's very much so on the table for Dawn, at least, to want Day out of the picture. And he knows, though, the fact, like, you just get rid of this Day, another one's coming. And it's pretty
Yeah,
much the exact same one.
it seems like we might be able to reheat that Civil War discussion that we
Yeah.
had. I think that was the end of season 1. That was fun. I loved that idea.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
if we can fracture the empire a little bit, that would be pretty crazy. If it's like, Day going a little buck wild with whoever is afraid enough to follow him. Demerzel maybe sticking along that because she's still riding the horse that she's been stuck with, and then maybe Dawn and Dusk, and then plus the second foundation. I mean, there's a lot. The mule. I mean, Jesus, there's a lot of interesting
And
interactions that can happen with all these potential factions here.
we don't have to get into this like crazy, but another interesting thing here is Dawn just, hey, I'm Dawn. And me and you, Sarah, we may have just got, taken a few steps towards having children together, and these are going to be my children. And Day at this moment in time exists, and he's Empire. This Dawn will grow to be a guy that looks like Day, and he will become Day, or he should become Day, but now it's being broken up. The trajectory is that he's supposed to grow up to look like Day, Lee Pace. And you could let years pass by your time and just let him become Day. And you would have to get rid of their method of creating these clones and creating other versions. But I mean, he can become Day. There's obviously still a route for him to take over as Day if they can keep the trajectory close enough. I don't know that Sereth and Dawn are willing to wait for her Day to get older and however many years, 10 plus years, to look like Day. Obviously, it's confusing. 17 years turns Day into old man Dusk. While he's still handsome, he's old man Dusk. It's a pretty big aging right there. But I don't, that nothing important. But yeah, it's just interesting. Everybody drink.
I really like the line that Sarah has when she's kind of shutting down Rue, and I'm pretty sure it's Sarah that says it. Maybe it's Rue, but just that wife and widow are both called Empress.
Yeah, that's Rue. Yep.
I liked that.
I agree.
That's,
I agree.
It's a good line.
She's literally saying, "Get married and then fine. Do what you want. If you want to write your death warrant, then fine. But wait till you get freaking married."
Did you think this whole episode, the title of it, The Last Empress, was related to Sareth up to this point?
That's a great question. I feel like I'm never aware of what the episodes are actually called when I watch them. So.
I actually agree with that kind of because, again, a lot of people are one end of the spectrum and the other end when it comes to spoilers. But I mean, saying you're not going to read the titles because of spoilers is kind of weird. But I usually do just skip over the title until it's time for me to say it on the pod.
So let's get into this. Go ahead.
Well, really quickly, what I will say is the only thing that I will say was a little weird and maybe disappointing to me was that no one significant died in that moment when the Whisper ship came in and Hober Mallow threw down.
Are you calling Becky insignificant?
I mean, on the Empire side, Becky. Okay. That's my homegirl. If that's a female creature, I don't know. I guess I'm going by the name here, but nobody. We thought Queen Sereth, like she was laying there, like you said, Kyle, and that's what triggered me to think that, like she was laying there, and I was like, oh shit, did they just kill the queen? But that's kind of the wrong person to kill if you're Hober Mallow. Dusk was hurt, Day was hurt. Yeah, Dusk cracking me up when he's like, when are these nanobots gonna freaking take effect, man? Like, we didn't really get any huge deaths in that, but maybe that's because there's something coming in the finale.
Yeah, I think the wedge that gets driven is enough of an impact.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay, let us do this last sprint of scenes on Trantor because this is all going to go together. We just have Dusk and Rue following up on their Sherlock Holmes, and they end up going into the chroma painting, which has the symbol that related to Demerzel, and you see the secret passage. What they find down in the basement is it triggers the 610 years ago back to the origin of the original Cleon the First. We see him as a child. We essentially see the highlight reel of his life just pass him by, but Demerzel is the big piece of this all, right? Like we get her entire backstory. We find out everything that there is to know about her, where she came from, how long she's been there, how she got interconnected with Empire, how she got programmed to bypass the rules of hurting humans to now only serving Empire. We got so much here that we can really just kind of react because the information, like I said, she's 5,000 years. She's been in that prison for 5,000 years. She's 18,000 years old. She's the last living AI robot, and she was almost tortured by the sadistic emperor that won the robot wars and made them all extinct. She was just like a Theon Ramsey situation where she was just being tortured over and over and over to the point where she eventually got put into this prison and she was just like separated by whatever technology they have to keep her stuck there. And then we have Cleon entering, finding her. We see him in all three versions, Yes, we saw them all 3 versions, which was just a nice writing trick.
Yep.
The cool thing about it was that Demerzel was very receptive. It felt like what's it called? Ex Machina, that movie. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it, but it's very like, how much is Demerzel leaning into the human empathy side of him to try and get out versus like, is she actually having these genuine conversations? She has a moment where, I'm skipping ahead here, she does get freed. She has the thought like she could have killed Cleon the first right there, but she doesn't. And then that is when he puts the new initiative into her skull that eventually drives everything she does from here on out. She's the inability to hurt Empire unless it's against Empire. I don't really know how to square that because of her eventually killing Dawn. But either way, there's just a bunch here. And the saddest part is when Dusk releases her from the prison for real, he kind of locks her into an agreement where she can never leave the Empire. She's going to always come back. She thinks that the genetic dynasty idea is like awful. It's reprehensible. It's nothing. It's like against just morality. And she doesn't want to be stuck as an advisor, but it's too late at this point. And then she accepts the quote unquote marriage proposal, if you want to call it that. And then we really just flash back to see the reaction of Dusk and Rue hearing all this, where then the Cleon projection locks them in there. And that is the end of the Trantor storyline. But my God, I was hanging on to every part of that flashback. I thought the Demerzel stuff was beautifully done. And like, you can't ask for much better. And I love that they save it to the penultimate of season 2 to really just add rewatch value. Like when you're going through season 1 and season 2 as me being the veteran, like it was just a joy having all that information, knowing where she came from, knowing what her goals were and stuff. Not that we have all of that squared out, but I'll pass it to you guys. What do you guys think?
They are lucky that this was so cool because the fucking secret doorway that no one has found in 6,000 years was like, okay, I guess I'll believe that because all of this stuff is super cool.
This is freaking Debbie over here, dude.
I know it feels weird because the episodes were good, but it's just like this feels like the most criticism that I've had.
Debbie Day Downer over here. But let me actually quickly get this out of the way. So when they first show Dusk and Rue, and Dusk noticed there's an anomaly, there's something wrong with the chroma in the painting, and they're interrupted because Day is going to have the execution. I was immediately thinking that because it's, of course, the picture of the robot, the AI, and that's the mural that they're looking at. I was thinking, because he says like somebody left us a hint, or what does he say, a clue or a symbol or whatever. I was thinking that was Demerzel later, like leaving a clue for one Dusk, any Dusk in her trajectory in the timeline that she's been involved, which is all of them. She knows that Dusk is usually the one who's, well, almost always the one who has to deal with the paintings, right? So my theory was going to be within those 15 minutes until we find out that Demerzel was leaving the clue so that a Dusk will find it, and that was going to be her passageway into her asking for help, which, because like we had those two theories, whether it was going to be, is she going to be the big dog or is she going to be a big part of a rebellion against the Cleons, right? But either way, I mean, it's been there forever, and
again,
you don't have to do
it's
anything special. You don't have to tickle the pear like Harry Potter or anything. You kind of just like walk into it and it opens up for you. But
exactly, again, it's the classic. I like A. I really liked B. I don't think I could have liked B maybe anymore, but the getting from A to B was like, all right, brother, whatever. Just get me to B.
Yeah, it was jarring seeing her in pieces like that, in layers. And again, the CGI great, and her talking, the actress has been phenomenal from day one, just having to act a certain way, act as a humanoid AI robot. And I was pretty surprised that we've seen flashbacks of Cleon the First with Demerzel when the Star Bridge was being built and he was going to die as before the first clones were going to be happening. He wasn't going to be able to see the Star Bridge. That's the correct way. Star. Yeah. He wasn't going to be able to see the building, the construction come to fruition. And they seemed really, really, really close, which it makes sense by the story that they would be because he's a little boy and he's been visiting her for years and years and years and years. I'm just so surprised. I would not have guessed that it took him all the way to when he's dusk to finally let her out. And it makes sense
Yeah.
now that we know the story because the entire time he is trying to figure out a way to control her, let her out, give her quote unquote, everybody drink freedom. But really, he needs the technology to be able to control her and and have the surety that she will be controlled, even though she's going to be out of these layers, out of her prison. She's still going to be in a prison. And she, as you know, Demerzel explains that perfectly well. And my take on what you were saying, Luke, about her. Well, first off, I just want to say, and this is probably whatever, but she was very like open to him going in the back of her neck and placing that thing in there. And then all of a sudden she's like, whoa, you just ruined my life, bro. Like, I don't know. Like she just, he opens her skin up and just plops it in and she didn't even like flinch. But then I don't know. Maybe
I think she
did.
underestimated him because I think
Yeah.
a big thing that I took away from the Cleon part of all this, and I really enjoyed that they played it this way, is that it's like very obvious that he's just like a pathetic person.
Yeah.
Like he's so alone, and not that that makes you pathetic, but just like the way he goes about everything, it just feels very pathetic. And I think that she was just kind of, maybe not thinking, but I think she thinks for sure that she is, better than him and that he was merely just like a means to an end.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think she necessarily expected that what he did to her was really even almost possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's okay. I could see that.
But
And
she does say that the stuff that he had was, she was like shocked that it was, didn't she say from Earth?
Yeah.
They say that the origin is Earth. That's in the stories that she tells. And she tells a
Yeah.
lot of stories. And my take on your question or your statement on her having to follow or obey Empire, he kind of explains it, but he puts the thing in the back of her neck and he says, "You will obey me. That's going to override your other three rules, your original three rules, and you will obey the ghosts of me," or however he says it. He says like the half men of me. But my take is that the code is making her follow him. They're all him. But I feel like somehow her code knows, or we know that she can talk to him. She's following him. Like that's why she can kill Dawn, because she knows it's straying from Cleon the First's vision.
Okay.
She will be able to kill this day, as she pretty much explains to him he's done. He's out because he strayed far enough. It could be that she doesn't want to do it, but she does have to listen to them. But I feel like no matter what, Cleon the First is the main person that she has to follow. Like the overarching thing that she has to follow is Cleon the First.
Okay. I can buy that.
That puts it in an interesting, maybe less fun box almost of like what she's capable of then.
I mean,
Because like what is the end game for her character then? I mean, does she just need to keep popping out Cleons to be able to stay?
Harry asks. He says, longevity or power? What is your end goal? Like, what is your,
yeah.
Well, I
and
just kind of curious. I mean, is it then I can't think of the opposite of existence. Is the like there being no Cleons left the actual key to her being free?
well,
But like she can't actually physically herself directly make that outcome happen.
So we need to find out more about the hologram of Cleon the First, because we've seen him when Dusk and Dawn go and visit the body of Cleon the First, and he talks to them. And then we see him again in Demerzel's prison, and he speaks with them. How often does Demerzel speak with him? Can he speak with her? Like, I will get to this when we get to the terminus stuff. But was that the reason why she looks to the right and says, "I have to return home"? Can he just speak to her in her head because he's also artificial? It would have to be what's destroyed. Number one, like you can kill all the clones, but no matter what, if that hologram is still existing, which we don't really know how it exists and what it really is, then I think she still needs to follow that and the directives of that.
I think we'll find. I mean, the finale. It seems like it's setting us up for a conversation between Dusk, Rue, and her,
And
where she'll seem to, I think, reveal more about those things because we've been sniffing around this for a
yeah,
very long time. I mean, it started kind of tongue in cheek, but
yeah, right.
then the evidence has kind of solidified over, especially obviously this season. And I think that the finale is going to give us a lot of clarity. It's going to be fun to see what it is and to talk about it. Like, again, with Luke as well on this, we're all in that equal playing field of like, okay, we have all the same information. Like, what actually is Demerzel's deal? Because I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, that statement itself assumes she makes it out of this season. I can't imagine she doesn't.
Yeah, she better. And we see in this scene with, the flashback scene with the Cleons that when he puts the chip in the back of her neck, he says, "Will you love me? Will you marry me?" And he says, like, "I wish I asked you that before." But it's pretty obvious that she would have said, "Hell no, bro."
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
to that Cleon, she fully has to obey. It does get a little weird because if she sees another Cleon straying, when does she just decide it's like, all right, let's just kill that one and get a new one? That one didn't work out. That's not the way we want to do it. Kill that one. Replace that one. Obviously, you have 3 Cleons there, and you don't want to make them suspicious and then have them all go crazy and stuff. So you do have to make it there's some kind of finesse to it. But I will say, as soon as Demerzel as soon as she knew that it was over for her, and he had the "Will you love me? Will you marry me?" kind of talk with her, she put her hands up into that position on her stomach. It was like the moment she had to, like, quote unquote surrender. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
ah, damn, that's so good.
Yeah, it was.
Well, I do wonder what the end of the genetic dynasty means for her. We've talked a
Yeah,
lot about like, okay, well, what does it mean for Dawn? But what does it actually mean for Demerzel in this type of knowledge? Again, because we don't have this solidified what actually is I obey Empire and all of those things. But like Day says, our children will be Empire, but he can
that's
say
not.
that.
Yeah, she's not letting that happen. I still believe from when we've said it earlier on in the season that it's playing out for whatever reason as it is, but when the time comes, she's not letting that shit happen. I don't
Yeah,
believe she would let kids be born.
I don't remember if I wrote this. There's no way because this sounds too good. It must have been something that the show did, but she has all the power, but not the power to do what she wants, of
Yeah,
like she is there and can do everything, but it seems like the actual way for her to get her freedom and real power is to eliminate all of the Cleons. That's literally the only thing pretty much that she can't do. So
yeah,
that struggle,
yeah. I
I
mean,
think, is going to be hopefully the highlight of the finale.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And Demerzel better be a huge thing. And I know we need to move forward, Luke, because we're getting a little bit long. But the panic in her face when she's literally taken out and put whole again as her different layers, and then she realizes and she says, like, this isn't freedom when she gets stuck with these directives. Crazy stuff. The last thing I want to say is I feel like we definitely need more information on what this Cleon the First hologram is, because I mean, is he not just like an AI robot, just like her almost? I mean, I know he's a hologram. He's basically Harry, I guess, right? So how sentient is he? What can he do? Like, what's his knowledge, free will, etc.? He's not a physical body like Demerzel, but he is pretty much like Harry. So is there like a machine or a prime radiant kind of thing that he's in, or in the castle or whatever it is. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff to talk about with that, but I just feel like we need more information on him because he's pretty much immortal. What he wanted. I mean, I know you need that physical body just so you can be physically the Empire, so that people will follow you. But I mean, I think this was talked about even in show or between us, where it's like, yo, all you should do is show up as hologram Cleon the First. You can be Empire, bro. You can
Well,
rule.
my only thought, and again, like I'm kind of hinting at the fact that I don't have the answer either, but it's like the pictures of people in Harry Potter, where like you have Dumbledore's essence in a picture frame,
Yeah.
but it's not actually Dumbledore. It's like
Right.
most of him. So that's how I'm taking it from what we have here. But I do think that they should touch on it more because it seems important. But all right, let's leave that for now. Let's go to our last planet here. It's going to be Terminus, another big action sequence towards the end of this. But to cue us into that, we do have a couple of scenes. We have the big one with Sir Mac, who's Constance's father, director of the Foundation. He's like super depressed. He's getting all salty about the prophet. And then he has that interesting, cool conversation with Harry, who shows himself, talks about like individuals, psychohistory stuff, basically what we've always talked about. If you guys want to talk about anything there, you totally can. But then besides that, we do have our big Hober Mallow constant scenes with the wine and the bangity bang, and then Rios catches them. So kind of like a big build up to this moment where they hook up, and like it's been talked about for a while. Kyle thinks the mule has been conceived. So anything you want to talk about for those initial setup scenes for Terminus?
I think the director was perfectly cast. He looks just exactly like he should. I don't really know how to describe it more than that to me, but he just has a great look of this guy who, we kind of don't like, but we also kind of do like. He just has a vibe to him that's kind of like, he's a narc,
Yeah.
but also like he had a great couple episodes here. And I think the end of his story, in my opinion, was very good. I like the conversation that he has with Harry too, and showed to me that he's not maybe like so one track minded in just being the director. When he says you value history, but you don't care about the people living in it, he's really dealing with the impact of his daughter and those things. And then I think Harry's response was very good as well, when he basically says that I actually probably care so much about people because it's all of the decisions that they've made throughout all of time that is the basis for the work that I do. Every single person who has ever lived matters, which is a pretty nice sentiment. And so I wasn't expecting any of this stuff out of the director. He's just ripping shots, just getting in his feels, and then the stuff that happens when day comes is its own kind of conversation in bucket too. But I was kind of like, damn, all right, he fucking turned a corner for me, because he was kind of a narc and a stick in the mud in the beginning of this season, but he really kind of turned it around.
Yeah, and the big turn for him too was, I mean, they're showing the broadcast, and it's his daughter that is going to be executed, right? But yeah, I agree. I don't have much more to say. I like the scenes. Day was just so out in the open. I did not know what the hell was going to happen. I mean, I didn't think he was going to catch a stray or something, but I mean, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the
so
big
what
talk
are your thoughts?
is
What are your thoughts on the
in the
hookup?
vault. We're in. I know Kyle's in.
Oh yeah, at the very least, if this isn't Hober Mallow, if this isn't the mule being considered, they're related, man. They're just so related. I'm so locked in on that. I just can't imagine any podcast moment being better than that reveal happening this season and us getting to talk about it. It will truly be the piece de resistance. We're going to be cracking our own type of wine whenever this wine is, because they don't actually get to crack it, which is, I think, very notable and important, along with the line where Constance says, let's promise to always attend each other's executions. And they've already kind of done that. So is that being like, okay, there's another one to come? I can see that promise actually being a thing, that there is like a small storyline, some effort that has to happen to actually like make that promise complete. And that'll be interesting.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think you guys are gonna like what happens in episode 10. Maybe you'll hate. I don't know, but it's gonna be something.
So let me ask you guys this question, and maybe you don't remember. It is kind of tough to pay attention at all times, but as we've seen Brother Constant this entire season, has she been hiding her blue Thespin eyes for most of the season, except recently?
I think she had him out in like scene 1.
Oh, so you think she had them blue the entire time? Okay. Because for whatever reason, in the last 2 episodes, they seem to be very prominent to me. And I know one of the one of the main reasons why I'm sure the writers would do that is because Day was giving his speech about how she's Thespin too. And,
Mhm.
you know, they, the
She's
Terminus, the Foundation mixed with the Thespins and the Anacreans. But I'm just saying, Kyle, if it wasn't, we already talked about it, but if it wasn't a big deal and they're honing in on those eyeballs these last 2 episodes, could it be because the mule's got those blue eyes?
What sound does a mule make? I don't even know. Because that's gonna be us when it gets revealed. We're just gonna be. I'm gonna be
Let's see.
standing up in my living room going.
Let's see here. Let me just see what let me see what the mule looks like exactly. Kind of looks like a donkey, which I expected. So
Yeah, that's why I went with that sound. It wasn't quite a
yeah,
horse.
yeah. Hold
Yeah,
on.
you see
Let's
where I
see
was
if I can
coming
get this
from.
shit. Yeah, mule versus donkey sounds. Let's figure this shit.
Versus donkey sounds. What are they fucking throwing it down?
I don't know. That's gonna sound different, I guess. Well, let's see here. Hold on. Animal sounds, 119K views, people.
That's a good one.
Oh,
That was good.
Kyle,
I
do
like
it.
mine better.
That's
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
that's
The first one is like the.
Yeah.
okay. To get us
That was
back on
fun.
track in some level, they get caught by Rios, who's getting his revenge from Hober, making his
Yeah.
escape. I really like the subtle scene that they have where Constant and Hober are in the prison cell, and Rios is gonna just cut Hober Mallow down essentially, but Constant plays to the character trait that he just constantly has, which is the bloodlessness of it all. And I love that about Rios. I think it's such a good quality
Yeah.
because it just goes so against everything that Day deals with, like Day stands for. But you see that for a second until Day himself and Demerzel show up on the ship, and they have this whole war plan. They're talking about the Invictus, which is great. It's actually sitting out there as their what is it? What's
Circumnavigate.
no, just like floating in
No.
the
Oh, yeah.
as
You're
they're
saying
orbiting, as they're orbiting
yeah.
terminus. Yeah, I don't know what the hell I was going for there, but they're orbiting terminus, and Cleon has an interesting conversation here where he's saying he wants to be the Cleon that demanded peace and is giving the
Yeah. He
Foundation an
wants to give
opportunity to bend the
virtue.
knee. Yes,
Yeah.
so who knows how it's going to turn out at this point, but nobody really buying any of that. But that's like the initial plan. He's going to go to the service himself. That's pretty much our next part, is everything to do with when he's walking on Terminus. Anything you guys want to mention about their war plan before it actually goes into play?
Well, to talk about Bel Rios quickly, because it happens in the aftermath of the execution too, and it's only relevant because of what ends up happening at the end of this episode and what will be the end of, I assume, this podcast episode discussion of him and Glawen are like openly talking on the bridge about revolution and like the empire being weak. And I was like, whoa, we literally had to go into a
Yeah.
special room to talk about that last episode. So I don't know what's happening here, fellas, but clearly they set us up for what happens at the end of this. And again, they do it with the Bell stuff of they've been setting us up of like, oh, his morals and he's, has this conviction and things like that. And then Day being like, oh, I'm going to be the guy who is peaceful and all this stuff. And both of those things pretty much get thrown out the window by what happens at the end of this episode. Tough scene.
Day is it's just so easy to piss him off and turn him back to his violent Day. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's just like, I'm gonna be virtuous. I'm gonna be a nice guy. And they're like, yo, Day, you're a piece of shit. He's like, kill them all. I hate them. Get rid of them.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
too,
yeah.
The conversation that before Day even shows up that Bell and Hober are having and Constant as well. And Bell freely admits that the Empire will end. But
Yeah.
in his mind, the Empire in its current state is more able to deal with that and the reality of that and the aftermath of that than the Foundation is.
Mhm.
It's just bigger than the Foundation currently is. So there's still that hope. And wow, to even say, I know she says faith, because Constance says to him, like, maybe you will be the bit of faith that we need to weather the crisis. And again, a setup totally for him still ending up making the decision and following the orders, because it was like, oh, could this be the moment where that comes true? Because Constance says it here and he's kind of talking about it a little bit. They're beating around it. And then, obviously Day comes through and messes all of that up, which is his erratic and enigmatic and very handsome manner.
Very handsome.
But yeah, just they're throwing all this out, and this Bell he has to. I'm gonna be so disappointed if he doesn't. And they could go that way with the story, but I'm just the scene after the execution, they're just like throwing it at us at this point.
Yeah, and I'm taking it as canon, whether they're writing it that way or not. Maybe I'm just really, we do talk about this all the time. Maybe I'm just really focused on it, but I fully took the conversation between Glawen and Bell at the end of that episode, where he's just like, you have to do it because otherwise everything will be for nothing, and he'll just destroy the fleet and you guys will be done. You won't have any power. Like, I took that as him saying, stay next to Day so you could break him down when it's time, or you could take him down when it's time. So I'm still taking it like he had to give the order, but he gave it reluctantly because he wants to stay in the good graces for now of Day so that he can take him down when it's really time, and now's not the time. That's how I'm taking it. And again, yeah.
Because DEMERZEL says,
so,
I chose you for a reason. And what's that reason? Is it to get rid of this Day and to be put the Empire in a better spot to kind of do what she can't physically do, which is kind of put an end to the genetic dynasty? But then also, why wouldn't the mule say when Bel Rios? I mean, that would be way too big of a spoiler for us as fans watching the show if we find out in episode 3 that Bel Rios is the one that pierced the Empire's hide. But DEMERZEL, we know she seems to be anti this Day in some way, and she specifically chose Bell. So it just, all signs are pointing to that happening. And of course, as usual, Jimmy and I are right there at the forefront.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And let's do our mule, dude. Let's do our mule.
Shout out, baby.
Yeah, baby, let's go. So
we're like the mule. If this podcast is the galaxy, then we're the mule. Or just going back into the past from the future and being like, this is what's happening.
For season 3, instead of Day, I'm gonna just be DEMERZEL, and then you could be the mule if you want, Kyle. That's fine.
Yeah. Let's go. And then Luke can be Harry. Lukey Selden can be Harry.
Yeah, I've been Lukey Selden.
Yeah. But before we move forward, I know we're getting close. I will say that once we get the reveal about DEMERZEL, and not even necessarily getting the reveal yet, but when we get, it's the episode of the reveal, so they know it's coming and it's building, you can see some nuances of her character changing. And obviously it's not her specifically changing her character because she knows it was revealed to the viewers, but it's just something that they're subtly doing, like her saying, I chose Bell. I mean, yeah, that's fine to say, but usually she won't say it that way. Usually she would say Empire chose you, or even I advised Empire to choose you. She wouldn't say I chose you for a reason. And you guys might not know the answer to this either, but is this the first time she called Day, Dusk, or Dawn Cleon?
I don't think so.
Because I was thinking she usually says Empire or Day, Dusk, or Dawn. And it was like, again, another one of those things where it's like a desperation kind of thing.
It
like
could have been.
Thing.
I don't know. I have a memory of her saying it, but it could be.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Wrong. Okay. So the next part of this is going to be Day's trip to the Terminus surface with DEMERZEL. He big dogs it the entire way. He's taking all this information in about the surroundings, how the Foundation is standing now. And he immediately wants to go to the church. And he finds out, like, the encyclopedists don't have an encyclopedia, and he's like getting madder and madder as the scene's going on, demanding what has been the benefit to the Empire for having them have gone through this whole couple hundred years or whatever it's been. And then that's when Polly has his moment. He shows him the alchemy, and Empire and Day still completely not impressed. And he's at this point escalating and ends up pushing Polly and discovering they have the secret technology of the auras. And having a personal aura triggers him to then tell Rios, all right, time to destroy everything, destroy the Invictus. We're taking everybody down. And then he even orders everybody dead except for the scientist. And then he takes Polly again as captive. This is the in between the vault scene. So the next part we're going to really talk about, we're going to dive into, but anything unexpected there happen for you guys?
The one thing I couldn't not think of, and again, this is my own fault at this, I guess you could say, is that like their display is that they can turn iron into gold, which to me read like, we can make gold. But like we're a galactic empire. Like gold isn't necessarily a rare substance in terms
that
of
might not even be the most valuable freaking mineral that's found.
Exactly. Yeah. It just made me laugh. It literally means nothing, but I just all I could think of, because isn't there, I feel like I've read before that they found like an asteroid somewhere that has like $25 trillion worth of gold on it. So as long as we can get there, then we would just figure it out. So I was just a small thing that just made me laugh, because beyond that, I don't know how much I really took away from this stuff, except for the fact that the whole religious thing is weird. It doesn't seem like, I guess Polly believes it, but I guess it just doesn't feel so like theological. When he's saying like, like it's science and the galactic spirit is progress and things like that. I guess it just because we're not maybe used to it being that way. It just doesn't come off like scream theology, religion.
And this could be, a eureka moment for Polly, where he's understanding that, yes, Harry is their quote unquote prophet, where he created psychohistory with, his wife Yana. Not that they probably know that, but let's just say he created psychohistory. He was the one that got everything started. So yes, he is the prophet, but this could be the eureka moment where he's like, it's his teachings, it's his beliefs, it's the progress that we're making that is actually the quote unquote everybody drink religion here. It's not based on fully just faith and magic or whatever he's saying. It's based on science. And yes, Harry started it, but we don't have to be like these kind of people that are like, please, Harry, save us. We are evolving and pushing forward ourselves with his guidance from the beginning, or guidance maybe toward, whatever.
Okay, let's loop in Harry as we're talking about it now. And I was shocked because I didn't remember this little moment where Day gets that cocky walking up to the vault. He doesn't want to leave the planet until he has his confrontation with the prophet. And he's being told like, oh, what do you think, I'm going to get like destroyed over here? And he literally just takes the aura off. He takes his armor off, and him and DEMERZEL walk right into the vault. I didn't remember that, but I think that's kind of badass on his part, because I would have been shitting my pants. But he does decide that he's going to do this. He's going to do this man to man. He came here for a reason. So this is a pretty big conversation, but it's important. And we've been talking about aspects of this conversation, but when they go in, a lot of this talk actually is Harry to DEMERZEL more so than Harry to Day. And that's really important. But they, of course, mention everything that's important about this whole thing with the Prime Radiant. We have the question of Harry's asking DEMERZEL, like, what is your goal? Are you actually trying to preserve power or longevity? That's a really cool question, because she doesn't actually give an answer here. So it leaves us to keep talking about it. And then I thought maybe the most badass line of this whole conversation was Day thinking that he was special, coming here, choosing peace, even though he wasn't actually choosing peace. And that's when Harry looks at him. He goes, I've met outliers. You're not one of them. You're all accounted for in psychohistory. You're not doing anything crazy here, even though they're having this whole philosophical debate about Day blaming Harry for essentially making himself immortal in the form of this AI version. And then that's what he's getting. That's what Harry was dunking on the Empire for, was the genetic dynasty. So it was just a lot of nuance to this conversation. felt like it was building for a while, but this is almost like the peak moment for this version of Cleon and versus Harry, and like this is like the standoff. So
This is a pretty revealing conversation in the way where it's like Harry and Demerzel, and let's talk about how someone says to, let's let the adults talk, right? That's how Harry's kind of speaking with Day,
mhm.
or speaking to Day. He's speaking to Demerzel a lot of the time, and it is revealing. And this is obviously when we get all of these reveals in this episode that Demerzel is very, very, very important, and Harry knows it. I mean, if you're going to talk about psychohistory and the future of the galaxies and having power, well, Demerzel is the epitome of immortal, pretty much. She's been around. She's seen psychohistory. She can, whether he's telling the truth or not, I would like to think yes. He can teach her how to use the Prime Radiant, which would be freaking sweet. It obviously is a big deal because he hands over the Prime Radiant and Day takes it. Demerzel is in the vicinity with it now. But the back and forth is always electric when you have Lee Pace and Jared Harris on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that like was thrown out there, geez, I don't even remember when we talked about it, of Demerzel maybe getting to a point where she can back Harry almost as a horse, or be a psychohistory convert. I'm just so interested in that potentiality because she is, let's say, at her base, like she's a robot. She is a machine. And we thought a lot about this in season 1 with the spiral. She has religious beliefs and all of that stuff. And so it's like, how human is she? And then, or not. And now that I'm saying this, do those timelines even match up of her when she walked the spiral versus how long she was in captivity? Because she's only been out for 610 years and she was in it for 5,000. So
Yeah, she
I
said it
don't
was
know.
like 11. She said she walked it like 11,000 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just interested in that possibility. And it could be me just bringing a level of, I guess, let's say, bias towards robots, I guess you could say, of like she should think super logically and like the numbers should
Like
appeal
with the
to her.
scale thing that he talks about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm just interested in that. I want to see her maybe even kind of torn too, of because she says, like, when I saw you talking, even if, let's say, she didn't agree, it was like, this is a guy that actually believes in what he's saying. And I'm just so interested in this concept of like, can she actually deny what he's saying? Like, is she lying to herself and that she doesn't actually believe in the numbers and psychohistory? Can there be a point where she's actually confronted with the spore cloud of the predictions and she can actually turn away from it?
Well, that's why I think he was trying to appeal to her, because
Yeah.
when she tries to appeal to his emotions, which was stupid in the first place, saying like, you want to stop suffering, that's suffering up there. And he goes, I'm talking about things at a way different scale, like universal. Like we're not even we're not even the same ballpark. And I thought you would understand that, he says to Demerzel, which is to just like that line goes hard, because like she should take the logic out and she should be able to objectively analyze it. And what he's saying is correct, assuming psychohistory is right. And one of the other things he says that I was dancing around with and what's probably cut is the reason that Harry brought them here or wanted them to come to the planet was so that he can give them the Prime Radiant, and then they can pretty much like roll with it, right? If Demerzel knew how to read it, they could guide the universe or guide the galaxy using the math. But of course, because Day's whole idea is that he wants Harry to admit that psychohistory is fake and he won't do that. That's like the trigger. Again, Jimmy, you brought it up. It's so easy to piss him off. That's all it took. And then he's like, all right, Belrios, destroy the Invictus, destroy the whole world, like do this right now. So just wild escalation of things because Day's a little baby and Harry's just the man.
I have a feeling that Harry knows who Day is. He knows who the Cleons are, and his assumption was that this conversation went exactly how. Let me start that again. The conversation probably went exactly how he assumed it would, where he wants to put it in Demerzel's head but he knows at this moment he's not going to convince them that it's time to teach Demerzel how to open the Prime Radiant and read it and join psychohistory, etc. I'm taking Demerzel and what you're saying, Kyle. It's like when she was given the poison, which we know is the broken OP thing that's power that she has, but she's given the poison and she says basically like if I didn't give it to you right now and I let you run away, I would chase you forever. So the crazy thing is like as long as these Cleons exist, as long as the method of bringing them back, as long as the hologram exists, she can see psychohistory and she can logically in her head say, yes, this is right. The numbers add up. It makes sense that someone like Demerzel would be on the side of psychohistory, but as much as it pains her, she can't do anything about it while her directive is stay loyal to Empire. And that's the battle, and that's the cool battle that we saw with the poison times pretty much infinity because the stakes are so much higher. And I'm sure that's what we're going to start to see in later episodes. So my take is that Harry knows that it wasn't going to happen in this episode or at this conversation in time, but the fact that she has the Prime Radiant was the point of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And does this Harry know? We already talked about it. Does this Harry know that within moments the vault is destroyed and he may be destroyed? Unless the theory that he's in the Prime Radiant, he's going to go with them is correct. It's very Harry of him. I'm a hologram. There's a piece of me. I know I'm point A to point B. We talked about this, Luke, where I finished my job. And Terminus is now destroyed. The vault's destroyed. I'm done. Thank you.
I think that's probably the answer. It feels like digital Harry's in the Prime Radiant.
Mm-hmm.
Did he seem like someone that would willingly sacrifice himself? Yes, but it also seems like such an easy out for him to persist, where like the thing that actually needs to happen, let's say that's Terminus getting punked, doesn't necessarily mean he has to die too. If he can actually avoid it, then he will. So
yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, go ahead, Luke. Just keep us
Okay.
keep us rolling.
Yeah. All right. So the rest of this episode is an amazing display of CGI battles, Star Wars style, into some really sad goodbyes and into a couple of OG character deaths here. So the bullet points of the next things that happen here, just of course the Invictus fight. That was awesome. We already praised the CGI. I don't know if you guys have anything specific about like maneuvers that you want to talk about, but that was really cool. Glawin was an MVP for the Empire side. He killed it. He actually was the one that broke through and caused the Invictus to get destroyed almost, or at least disarmed for the fight. We have the Hober Mallow goading Day to pulling constant Day onto the main room. That happens. We have the Demerzel getting real with Day for the first time before she says she has to leave. And then of course the last thing that happens is the very sad, but honestly I thought well done, Glawin Bell goodbye on top of Polly dying. So it was just a lot of emotion towards the end. And you said it well. I'm just sticking on that last point of Hugo and Sal doesn't do anything compared to how sad it was when Bell turns off the main communication to the army when he's like talking to his husband, and it gets real sad, and he takes it very well, but he understands the stakes. This whole ending part was really good, and you're right, like it felt like a finale. Like I don't think they even needed to have another episode, but there are some things that are sticking in my head that I'm really excited for us to see. But this was a lot, and I know we probably have the most to talk about with the Demerzel talking today and how she drops the act and talks about why she even initiated sex in the first place and what her angle was. But I guess my question, just to start this conversation off with specifically that Demerzel and Day conversation, was the reason she had that freak out moment was because she was aware that Rue and Dusk got into the vault and like got the secrets, and then the alarms went off. Is that why she turned around? She's like, I got to go home.
Yeah, I mean, I alluded to this earlier. My question will be, can she speak with the hologram version of Cleon the First? Like, can he speak to her in her head and he said come home, or he told her you have a new directive, etc.? Or was it as simple as, like you said, Luke, she is locked in, and she,
Mhm.
you know, the prison was opened and she knew that they were there, so she knew to take care of some shit. I'm sure we'll get the answer, but yeah,
Mhm.
one of those two. And again, I love the freaking acting. I mean, she does this whenever something bad is going to happen, but she's walking, she stops, she looks to the right, like someone's talking to her, and Day says, "What's good?" And then she lays it in on him.
Then she just calls him a sperm and dips.
Yeah, true.
I thought that was so funny. It was like, you're a little sperm, brother. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what do you even say to that? He was just kind of left stuck there in the hallway, like, goddamn. But
Mhm.
he also gets to watch the thing blow up, Invictus blow up Terminus, and he has that little cheeky smile on his face. Well, he doesn't maybe realize that his number one general is over there plotting in the corner because he just made him kill his beloved husband.
Mhm.
Because Belrios is going to join in some way. The foundation
Oh yeah,
is
dude.
Well,
pretty
yeah,
much
join
dead,
what?
but the second foundation, baby, we got
Yeah,
another
okay.
one. You ever hear of the second foundation?
well, quickly, right? I guess they lost the second crisis. They didn't defeat it.
Is
good
If we're
this
question.
counting
actually the
Foundation 1,
crisis?
unless
Yeah.
you're saying Foundation 2 counts also, but I mean, we're assuming this was the first crisis or the second crisis, and I can say that the planet blowing up pretty much means they lost. I don't know. Was
Looked
moral
great. If
victory?
if they lost, it was a great
um,
looking loss because that singularity, like when it started expanding and like having the, I don't know if it's a black hole or whatever, because they did mention singularity. So I thought
yeah.
it looked incredible, man.
Oh yeah.
Money,
Oh yeah. And
money spent on these big movies. Like, how do they not look as good as what we're assuming is the one of the cheaper Apple TV shows? It doesn't make sense to me.
yeah,
The
we're
the
talking
shot
about it.
too with Demerzel like being about to be or in the jump ship and she still sees it and you kind of see the reflection of it too in the glass. I just thought was really well done. What am I
Mhm.
taking away from that? What are they trying to tell me? Not entirely sure, but my eyeballs liked it.
Mhm.
I agree. I agree. My eyeballs liked it as well. And we joked about, everybody jokes about how bad at times CGI for MCU has gotten. And it's like, look at Foundation, hire them, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Um, let's quickly talk about this conversation with Demerzel, because she says, "I have to go home." And he's like, "What? This is our moment." She's like, "No, this is your moment." And she's like, "I have another directive. I have something more important to attend to," which today is probably like, "What? What are you talking about, bro? I'm the most important," right? And she says, "It happened often, basically when you were younger," right? So that's the thing. Was Cleon the first calling her to talk to her and be like, he's not good enough, he's not Cleon enough? Like, I mean, the explanation here is that I took you to bed so that I could control you better and so that I could have more, more influence on you to try to make you more Cleonic, make you more like Cleon the first. But it didn't work, and that's my fault, right? So, what does that mean when she was being called often?
Yeah, I couldn't tell. It kind of seemed like she was saying that she was like putting out fires in the Empire, but also it's easy for
Oh,
us
okay, yeah,
to also think like, okay, maybe she was planting seeds around,
yeah, yeah,
the old
yeah.
Emp, and maybe
The old imp.
something will come of that for the Emp in the future. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I could take it that it's just like, s you would definitely call Ruin Dusk getting into the prison as a fire she needs to put out. So it could be like, when you were the younger Day, you were freaking a POS and you were not like Leon the First, and you kept making awful decisions, and I just had to keep putting out fires, and this is like the ones that I used to have to. That's pretty good
Mhm.
if you're
Yeah,
not gonna be as, yeah.
and she has no interest in staying and being in this moment. I think to her, I don't even know the right way to say it, but it is. Well, this is not exactly what I'm trying to say, but when she says it's your moment, she totally means that, and that I'm completely
Yeah.
distancing myself from this decision. Like, this is literally all you. And I think maybe she expected this of him. I don't think that she anticipated it would be a discussion and a handshake. She knows him, it seems, pretty well, better than
Was
most
she
people.
adm was she admitting to him, just, like, letting him know straight up, like, "This is your moment, you're gonna be gone soon?" Like, doesn't she say something
Oh, I
along
don't
the
know.
lines of,
I
like
didn't take it that
I
way.
thought I thought she said something, like, I thought there was a quote where she was basically like I don't remember. I thought it was like, "Enjoy it while it lasts," or not like that exact quote, but something along the lines of that where, like, she's basically saying, like, "You're gonna be replaced."
Well, I
But
guess,
I
and
don't
from
know,
her
maybe I
perspective, they always do.
Yeah, I just thought that she was yeah, I don't know. I would have to rewatch it. Again, guys, we
Mhm.
do a pretty much an instant reaction for this, so I don't know why I took it like she was basically telling him, like, "You're gonna be replaced, like, you're done, you're out."
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Truth be told, I think my last thing I have here is just shout out to Polly.
Yeah, yeah. The first,
He planted his flag.
is he the first character that we see in the entire show?
Yeah, he
Running
might
up
There's
and
be.
a,
trying to put his flag down.
I think it is because you hear Gail, and you definitely see Polly before you see Sal. So I
Yeah.
think
Oh,
this is
yeah.
the oldest character of the entire show. Going out, looking up at the vault, having done a lot of work to get us here. I wonder what was going through his head as the foundation was ending, but maybe it'll live on through Constant.
I like that in that we didn't really talk about this scene so much, but when it's Day and Polly kind of going to Terminus and they're
Mhm.
chatting, and Day's basically trying to big dog him a lot and saying, it must be along the lines of it must be such an honor, being with Empire. And he says, I've met Harry Seldon. I'm used to fame. It's like, bitch, fuck you.
I knew this was going to be the longest podcast ever, so I made the executive decision to cut that scene, and
Yeah, it's fine.
I should have given you a chance to say something. But yeah, that Polly had some moments where he's
Yeah.
really getting philosophical. These 2 episodes.
He beasted.
And RIP to the Invictus, because my God,
Dude, I was gonna say that.
cool freaking just plot element of this entire
Yeah.
show.
And low key, the fact that they have brains in their ships,
Yeah,
pretty sweet.
the
Yeah, that was
Whisper
cool
ships.
info.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Think I'm
Last
good.
question
Yeah.
for you. Yeah, last question for you guys, and then we're hitting it. This is just a little bit of a clarification here. With Demerzel, Dave Cleon the first puts the thing in the back of her neck. My assumption here is that she can't get to it because it just won't let her, right?
Yeah.
It's like one of those things where she can't hurt him, so she won't be able to go in and just pull it out, right? And
Yep.
when he shows her kit, and she says like that's from Earth, which is a great call out. He opens it up and like the chips in there, but it also has all the other stuff that she has at her table that we see that Rue is like getting into. I mean, when he was showing that to her and it was like, I hear this is to you and I have the answer. The answer was the chip, right? Everything else isn't that big of a deal. Like that other stuff is just her way of fixing herself and changing her face and this and that. But it was a box that had the chip in it, right? I mean,
I think so.
okay.
Yeah, you're kind
Yeah.
of maybe thinking like, why couldn't she just be like, yo, Stormtrooper number 12, can you pop this thing out my back real quick? Like, I'll be eternally
Yeah.
grateful. It has to be more
Yeah.
complicated than that.
Yeah, and now that you're saying Stormtrooper, we of course got the battle scene where each pilot is calling in. And I just
Big
think
Red coming in.
yeah, how sad is it that I'm literally thinking Blue Harvest Family Guy
Yeah,
over
because
over
it's supposed to
Star
be
Wars.
Red 5 or whatever, and they keep doing the
Yeah.
jokes, and it's the Big Red
Red
gum. Big
October.
Red coming in. Yeah, Red October.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Oh gosh, guys, we went 2 hours. We hope you listened to us this entire time. I don't know, Kyle, do you want to give us the mule sound one more time before we end the episode?
Ooh, baby, mules up, baby. You're getting a
Oh yeah.
lot of that in season 3, baby. Stick around all summer.
Yeah, 2 hours of deliriousness here, guys, but we hope you enjoyed it. please hit that subscribe button because we have one more episode left. And then July 11th, we're here. Season 3 will release. Luke will be here to finally be able to talk to us. And actually, next episode, Luke's
yeah.
back, baby. Luke
Full
is in. We
thoughts.
get to talk theories. We get to talk about everything with Luke. This is it, Luke. We've been putting so much time in. You've been guiding us, and you've been patiently. And we actually got some props. You got some props on the Discord about how you were able to keep some straight faces, apparently. So we love it, guys. Go jump on our Discord for Foundation just in time for season 3. Discord, bingetowntv.com/Discord. We're also covering Murderbot on the Core podcast right now. There's only 2 episodes left there. That will end right as Foundation is starting as well. We also have, like I said in the intro, the Binge Empire podcast covering very soon Dexter Resurrection, Wednesday, Alien Earth, Stranger Things, a little bit of Squid Game, all over the place. The Institute starring our boy Jason Diaz. There's going to be a lot on there, so please check that out. And the Bingetown TV podcast, that's our flagship podcast. It just has all the cool conversations between the 7 of us. Just some fun pop culture, TV, movie conversations. Just to make you laugh a little bit, have a little fun, like you're talking to your friends. Otherwise, guys, we'll be back so soon. I don't know. Am I going to watch the finale right away? I'll text you guys, meaning not the listeners. I wish I could text all you guys. I'll let everyone in the Discord know. I'll text you and Luke and Kyle. But once again, we are the core.
I'm going to get texted this time. Yeah, you're not just going to text Lukey Selden on the side and not include me. Yeah, no, I don't want to hear none of that shit from you.
Oh, we're gonna have a mule chat, just me and you, dude. Once again, we are the Core Podcast, and thank you so much for listening.